Press your palms together right now. Feel that warmth spreading between them, the slight moisture, the pressure as you push harder. Maybe you can feel your pulse in your fingertips. This is touch at its most basic, skin against skin, the boundary where you end and something else begins. You've done this 10,000 times. When you were a child learning to pray, when you clapped, when you caught yourself from falling. Right now, in this moment, your hands are touching each other. No, they're not. They've never touched. They never will. And here's what disturbs me most. The harder you press those palms together, the more violently your atoms are repelling each other. That warmth you feel, that's the heat of an electromagnetic war. Trillions and trillions of electrons screaming at each other across an invisible gap that you'll never, ever cross. You're not pressing your hands together. You're levitating them 1/10,000,000th of a centimeter apart, suspended by forces you can't see, living your entire life without ever actually touching anything. Not once. Not ever. I promise you something. By the time we're done here, you'll understand why this impossible gap between your hands, this cosmic restraining order that every atom obeys, is the only reason you exist at all. We'll get to what would happen if you could actually touch something. Hold that thought. It involves enough energy to level a city. And we'll get to why the gap between your atoms is more active than the sun's core. That's coming. Common sense tells us touch is simple. Two things make contact. But common sense is just a collection of prejudices we acquired by age 18, and nature doesn't care about your intuition. The real answer to why you can't touch anything connects the warmth between your palms to the birth of stars, to the reason solid matter exists, to why you don't fall through the floor right now. Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments. And if you've ever wondered why reality feels solid when atoms are mostly empty space, hit subscribe because this is about to get much stranger. Maybe you're thinking I'm playing word games. Of course I can touch things, you say. I'm touching my chair. I can feel my clothes. This is just semantics about what touch means. Stop right there. This isn't about words. This is about the physical impossibility of what you think you're doing right now. Let's destroy that comfort completely. When we say two things touch, we mean their surfaces make contact. No gap, no space between, like two puzzle pieces clicking together. That's not semantics. That's a physical claim about atoms getting close enough that there's nothing between them. But there's always something between them. Always. Maybe you think, okay, atoms are mostly empty space. Everyone knows that. The nucleus is tiny. Electrons orbit far away. So when I touch something, the electron clouds overlap a bit. They merge at the edges. This is where it gets genuinely disturbing. Electron clouds don't overlap. They can't. There's a fundamental law of quantum mechanics, the Pauli exclusion principle, that forbids any two electrons from occupying the same quantum state, ever, under any circumstances. But hold on, we haven't even talked about what happens when this principle is tested to its limits. We'll get there. Think about what that means. Every electron in your body is surrounded by an inviolable quantum boundary. No other electron can cross it. This isn't like a speed limit you could theoretically break. This is reality saying no at the deepest level. It's baked into the mathematics of existence itself. But wait, you might say, and this is the last hope people cling to. What about chemical bonds? Atoms share electrons and molecules. Surely that's a kind of touching. No, even in the tightest chemical bond, electrons don't occupy the same space. They share orbitals, they exchange positions, but they maintain their quantum sovereignty. Always separate, always isolated. The jiggling atoms in your DNA, the proteins folding in your cells, the calcium in your bones, none of them touch. They're all hovering, suspended by invisible electromagnetic scaffolding. I haven't even told you the strangest part. This will matter later. The gap between you and everything else. It's not empty. We need to talk about what's actually in that space. But first, let me show you what's really happening when you think you're touching something. Imagine you're holding two magnets with the same poles facing each other, north to north. You push them together and feel that invisible cushion pushing back. The harder you push, the stronger the resistance. You can get them close, but never touching. That's exactly what your atoms feel, but the force is trillions of times stronger. Every atom in your fingertip is a magnet screaming wrong pole at every atom in whatever you're trying to touch. Now let's build on that. Picture a hovercraft floating on a cushion of air. It never touches the ground. It rides on an invisible barrier of pressure. Your entire body is like that hovercraft. You're not standing on the floor. You're hovering 1/10 millionth of a centimeter above it, suspended by electromagnetic fields. You've been levitating your whole life and calling it standing. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we dive into the quantum mechanics of why you're levitating right now, let me give you an even better picture. Set up a speaker playing a pure tone and sprinkle sand on top. The sand particles jump and hover at specific heights, never touching the speaker surface. They're suspended by standing waves of pressure. Your hand pressed against the table? Those are your atoms, dancing at the perfect height, where electromagnetic repulsion exactly balances the force of your muscles pushing down. Let's go deeper. Two soap bubbles drifting toward each other. They deform as they approach. They dance around each other. They can even appear to merge. But there's always a thin film between them, an uncrossable boundary. Your atoms are like those bubbles, except the film between them isn't made of soap. It's made of pure electromagnetic force. But wait, remember those magnets I mentioned? That invisible cushion between them? We're about to see how that scales up to something that will genuinely disturb you. Have you ever watched a mime artist pressing against invisible glass? That's the most honest analogy I can give you. When you touch something, you're performing the ultimate mime act. You're pressing against an invisible, unbreakable barrier that your brain interprets as a solid surface. Every atom is a perfect mime artist, and reality is the greatest mime performance. The glass isn't really there, but the force field is. Do you think atoms ever actually touch in extreme conditions, maybe in the heart of stars or during nuclear fusion? Tell us in the comments. Here's the truth that took me months to fully accept. The electromagnetic force obeys an inverse square law. Double the distance, and the force drops to 1/4. Have the distance, and it quadruples. As atoms get closer, the repulsion grows exponentially. At the distances we're talking about, nanometers, angstroms, the force becomes titanic. The energy required to push two atoms into actual contact would be like compressing all the world's oceans into a teaspoon. We'll see in a moment why this compression would end very, very badly. And now we reach the part that keeps me awake at night. Let's scale this up to cosmic proportions. Every star in the universe, every planet, every grain of cosmic dust, they're all following the same rule. Nothing touches anything. The universe is 13.8 billion years old, contains 2 trillion galaxies, each with hundreds of billions of stars, and in all that time, in all that space, no two atoms have ever actually touched. Think about what this means for the concept of solid matter. A diamond, the hardest natural substance we know, it's just carbon atoms hovering in formation, held apart by electromagnetic force fields. Its hardness isn't from atoms locking together. It's from the precise geometric arrangement of their force fields, like an invisible crystalline scaffold made of pure repulsion. Actually, wait, I need to back up. Before we go cosmic, there's something about that space between atoms that I've been avoiding telling you. Remember when I said the gap between atoms isn't empty? Remember that quantum storm I promised to explain? Here's where it gets strange. The Earth itself, this massive ball of rock and metal we live on, it's not solid the way you think. It's quintillions of atoms levitating in perfect formation, their electromagnetic fields interlocking like invisible gears. The planet is more like a cloud that happens to be very, very dense. A cloud with attitude. This extends all the way down to the quantum foam, where space and time themselves become uncertain. And it goes all the way up to galactic superclusters, vast webs of matter strung across the cosmos, where every strand is made of things that never touch, held together by forces acting across the void. But here's where the existential vertigo really hits. You are a pattern of atoms that never touch, held in formation by electromagnetic forces. Your consciousness, your thoughts, your memories, they emerge from the interactions of things that are forever separated. You're not a solid being. You're a standing wave of electromagnetic repulsion, a ghost made of force fields, a pattern that persists despite every part of you being fundamentally isolated from every other part. The vacuum between your atoms is more active than the center of the sun. It's a quantum storm of possibility, and that storm is what mediates the forces that create the illusion of touch. Particle pairs popping into existence and annihilating each other billions of times per second, virtual photons carrying the electromagnetic force between your atoms and everything else. Now, let me tell you what would happen if you could actually touch something. Remember that city leveling energy I mentioned? If the electromagnetic barriers failed for even a fraction of a second, the energy released when your atoms actually made contact with another object would be catastrophic. We're talking about matter trying to occupy the same space, electrons being forced into the same quantum states. The Pauli exclusion principle would fight back with infinite force. The result wouldn't just be an explosion. It would be a conversion of matter directly into energy that would make nuclear weapons look like firecrackers. This is why you can never touch anything. It's not a limitation. It's a safety mechanism built into the fabric of reality. The universe is protecting you from yourself every second of every day. But anyway, here's what really matters. And this is where the whole story flips. Because everything I've told you about never touching anything, it's simultaneously the most isolating and the most connecting truth about existence. You see, when you hold someone's hand, you're right, you're not touching them. But something far more profound is happening. The electromagnetic fields of trillions of your atoms are interacting with the fields of trillions of their atoms. You're not touching, but you're exchanging energy, information, heat. The force fields between you are dancing, responding, adjusting. It's not contact. It's communication at the deepest level physics allows. Remember the electromagnetic war I mentioned at the beginning? Those trillions of electrons screaming at each other? That war is actually a conversation, a negotiation, an exchange of virtual photons that carries information about pressure, temperature, texture. You're not feeling the object. You're feeling the force field interaction. This is the beautiful paradox. We're all islands of matter that can never touch, but we're connected by invisible bridges of force that span the gaps between us. Every atom in your body is in constant electromagnetic dialogue with the atoms around it. You're not touching the ground, but the force field between you and Earth extends in both directions. The floor is pushing you up exactly as hard as you're pushing it down. It's a relationship, not a contact. When you hug someone you love, your atoms don't mingle, but your electromagnetic fields do. They reach out across that tiny uncrossable gap and exchange photons, actual particles of light your eyes can't see. You're literally glowing at each other at frequencies beyond human perception. That warmth you feel isn't from touching. It's from the electromagnetic radiation of their atoms exciting yours across the void. You're not touching. You're sharing energy across an impossible gap, which is somehow more intimate than mere contact could ever be. Think about what this means for loneliness, for connection, for love. We worry about being isolated, about not truly connecting with others. But physics says we're all permanently isolated and permanently connected at the same time. We can never touch, but we're constantly influencing each other through forces that transcend physical contact. Every person you've ever been near has exchanged force carriers with you. Their electromagnetic field has danced with yours. You've never touched them, but you've shared something more fundamental, the forces that hold matter together. Tomorrow morning, I want you to try something specific. When you wake up, before you do anything else, press your feet against the floor and stand there for 10 seconds. Don't think about standing. Think about levitating. Feel yourself hovering 1/10,000,000th of a centimeter above the ground, suspended by invisible fields. You're not touching the earth. You're electromagnetically negotiating with it. Then touch someone you care about. Hold their hand, hug them, or just pat their shoulder. But this time, feel what's really happening. Feel the warmth that comes from energy jumping across an uncrossable gap. Feel the pressure that comes from force fields in negotiation. You're not touching them. You're doing something much more profound. You're proving that connection doesn't require contact. It requires interaction, influence, the exchange of energy across the void. We live in a universe where everything is forever separated and forever connected, where touching is impossible, but connection is inevitable, where isolation is the rule, but influence is the law. The atoms in your body right now are having electromagnetic conversations with atoms in distant stars, exchanging photons across light years. You can't touch anything, but you're connected to everything. That gap between your atoms and the world, it's not empty space. It's not separation. It's the medium through which all influence flows. It's where force carriers dance, where quantum fields fluctuate, where the real business of reality happens. You don't touch the universe. You participate in it through forces that mock the very concept of distance. If this shifted the way you see touch and connection, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more journeys into reality's beautiful absurdities. And tell us in the comments what you're going to do differently now that you know you've never actually touched anything. Thanks for staying until the end. The universe built itself on a fundamental separation that enables all connection. And you, this pattern of atoms that never touch, this electromagnetic ghost reading these words. You're the universe's way of experiencing what it feels like to almost touch itself. Forever almost. Never quite. Always connected by the trying.